Hi, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Ask a Witch. I'm Katrina Rasbold, practicing witch of around 40 years and professional witch for most of those years, where I do spell work and cleansings and readings for other people, as well as give them advice and teaching on how to do practical witchcraft. So, the question we're dealing with this time is one that lately has become a really popular question, and that is regarding technology and spell work. Are they in opposition to one another? Are they a problem for one another? And we have the added component of AI that has now come into this conversation that people are all up in arms about. And actually, Dahlia Rose and I just did a Crossroads of Cognizance broadcast that is specifically on the influence of AI on spirituality. So you can find that at crossroadsofcognizance.com, or you can look up Crossroads of Cognizance here on YouTube and find that episode that is specifically on AI. In fact, I can link it in the details of this, so you'll probably see it linked below if I can remember to do that. Now, AI itself, of course, is a whole other conversation, but I kind of left AI to its own devices for the Crossroads of Cognizance thing, so you can watch that there. But I want to talk specifically, or more generally, actually, about technology and whether that is an influence on spell work that is not good or is destructive in some way. Now, there are a lot of people who are Reconstructionists who want to do spell work exactly as it was done in the old times. And that's fine, if that's what makes you happy or makes you feel specifically magical. What I have found in following witchcraft over centuries, and I wrote a book called Crossroads of Conjure that was about specifically folk magic in the United States, um, mostly pretty much since the 1800s, and how that developed. And what I've seen in studying witchcraft all through the ages is witchcraft is an evolving practice. And of course, any practice that doesn't evolve is going to die. In order to continue, it has to grow with the times. Now, with folk magic in particular, we saw eventually the integration of things like train tracks for magic and railroad spikes. We saw umbrellas and brooms and things like that come into play, tools that came into play with witchcraft. And so, all through history, witchcraft has integrated new ideas and concepts into the practice. And technology to me is just another one of those tools that comes into play. Now, one big change that technology had on, I would say, paganism and Wicca specifically is unity. Because when I went to my first Pagan Pride Festival in 1999, I had just gotten into computers and the online world and finding message boards and bulletin boards. Remember those, old people? Things like that, to connect with other pagans. And prior to that, we were limited to the people that were in our community that we knew, or that we met at the metaphysical store, or that were in our coven, or whatever it might be. And so our connection to others was very limited. We had a little tiny bookshelf in the bookstores that was dedicated to witchcraft or Wicca. It was usually actually misfiled under the astrology section, but we could find out that way about what other witches were doing compared to what we were doing. And so it was a very tiny world then. And all of a sudden, the computer craze hit, and everybody started having computers, and we could connect with other pagans, other witches, other Wiccans, and have this endless font of exposure and connection and information at our fingertips. And that just exploded paganism and Wicca and witchcraft. And when, like I was going to say, when I went to that first 1999 Pagan Pride and walked onto that venue field and saw literally hundreds of pagans in one place, it was mind blowing to me. I could not believe there were so many people there that were like me. And so over time, that became the norm. And so we became very connected on a global scale. And so technology really affected the connectiveness of magical people, as opposed to it just being within your little coven stead or whatever. I remember having what I called a disc of shadows that was my Book of Shadows, my grimoire, and it was on a floppy disk, which of course those by that time were not floppy. They were the little square plastic discs that you jammed into your computer. And I actually wrote DOS on it, DOS, Disk of Shadows, so that people thought that it was an MS-DOS install disk. And that allowed me to type my recipes, my journaling, all of my spell work, all of my rituals that I was doing just all went on there. And so suddenly we were having a digital involvement in our even our record keeping regarding our spellcraft. And I would even, if I wanted to do a banishing spell, I'd pull up a Word document and put, the name of the person that I wanted out of my life or some influence that didn't need to be there. And I'd write it all out. And then I would go up to the X to close the document, click that. A little box would come up that said, "Do you want to save these changes?" I put the mouse over no. I take a minute and just really invest my energy into getting rid of this situation because it's going to go away forever. Click no, boom, and it's gone. So there's lots of ways we can use technology productively in our spellcraft. Now, certainly being able to just, you know, type out a ritual, print it out, and give it to the 10 people who are putting on that ritual is a godsend to be able to do that. So technology has made its way into the craft very successfully. And I don't feel like it's something we need to be afraid of. I will guarantee you that any of the Granny Weatherwax or any of those old witches that could use a Bic lighter would have used a Bic lighter. If they could have an electric light instead of an oil lamp, they might have done that. So they would use the tools that they had on hand. That's one of the biggest things about hoodoo that is a cornerstone is use the resources you've got. Don't cry if you don't have mandrake and can't do this spell. You find something that'll take the place of mandrake. So it's all about adapting. It's all about making craft your own. And that I believe is going to integrate technology into it because technology is so much a part of our life right now. It becomes natural to become a part of what we're doing because why? Magic is natural. Witchcraft is natural. And so we want to make our living experience part of that craft. Now, sure, it's fun to just go back to the old stuff and only use that. And then if that's your game, then you can absolutely do that. But for me, I really like to integrate magic into my daily life and my daily life into magic so that they're one, so that everything is part of magic. So that's my speech on technology. I hope it answered your question about whether those are diametrically opposed to each other. I just don't feel like they are. I feel like they're big assets to one another. Now, I will put the codicil on there to say that you can use anything destructively. Anything can become a destructive force, but that doesn't mean we should ever go into a magical experience with fear. And we should always go into it at our highest and best, using our resources available to us to the highest and best capacity that we can. So that's why I include technology into that conversation. So I hope that answered the question for the person that asked it, and y'all take care. Bye bye.